Hey guys, so we are continuing the video about birds, and of course, we had to include little Jackie in on this conversation about birds. Um, let's talk about their evolution of flight. That's about what we left off last time. We said that they had evolved from dinosaurs, that they had evolved from reptiles, and that we had lizard hipped ones, and we had bird hipped ones, and they actually came from the ones considered lizard hipped, is where birds came from. And there were three hypotheses about how the origin of flight actually happened. Like, how did they actually get off the ground? Why did they get off the ground? What brought them to that point to begin to fly? So there's three different theories. The first is arboreal, that there's evidence to believe that based on the fossil record that these guys lived in the trees, that they had longer fingers and toes so that they could hook on to branches, and that if they were jumping from tree to tree, it would be better if they could glide from tree to tree. That would be easier on them. So we've got these gliding abilities here on these guys. So we think that they were possibly, this is the theory for this one, that they were arboreal. They were living in the trees, and that to go from tree to tree, it would be a bit easier if you could just kind of glide on over there with your feathers instead of having to jump. For another theory is that they use their feathers, they use those wings as an insect net. And we can see this in present day birds. So that's what sparked this possible theory. If you blow this up and you watch this video on mockingbirds, if you've never seen them do this behavior with the insect net, they put their arms out there and they cast a shadow, and so all the bugs are underneath are like, what's going on, why is it all cloudy? And they get up and they move and they expose themselves, and then the mockingbird's like, I got you, and they eat the insects. So they could use it as an insect net, is another way that they thought um, wings may have come about. The last one is that if they were running and they had to run uphill or run up a boulder or whatever it may be, if they were running up, that it would help them be able to climb if they could flap, and that would help them increase their rate of climb. So wings are assisting them. So we've got this guy here, this little grouse running up this very steep incline, and it helps to have wings to help propel you up the steep incline. So these are three different ways that we think maybe that's why wings came about in these reptiles. Oh, excuse me. The different forms, they are just like they've got different beaks. They have evolved different wings, and the way that they are evolved has to do with, what are they doing in their daily life? What are they eating? Where do they need to go to do the things that they need to do? So we've got a hawk over here. These guys are going to need to be able to soar, and you'll see the red shoulders and the vultures and the guys like that. They'll ride the thermals on up, but then they're hunters, so they also need to have some speed to be able to get down to their prey. So they've got a little bit of combination of both for high lift wings, but they also need to be able to get down and grab the mice or the voles or whatever it is that they're going to eat for prey that day. If you are soaring super high above the ocean currents like this albatross, you've got huge, narrow wings. We said before, like that frigate bird, for example, is a kind of similar structure here, but they're very long, 7 feet for the frigate bird, long, narrow wings, and those things are going to help them soar above on the currents. The swallows have I call them the fighter jet wings. They are built for speed. So they are zipping around trying to catch the bugs in flight, and they need to be very agile and fast. So swallows are going to have these kind of wings. And then we've got flycatchers. They have, instead of long and narrow, they're going to have broad and elliptical shaped, no pointy wing slots. They're going to have these large ones instead of the pointy ones like we've got over here and here. We've got these large wide wing slots and this kind of elliptical shape here. These are flycatcher wings. So different wings for different birds for different needs. Migrations. Lots of birds are going to migrate. Why do they need to migrate at all? Different areas will be better for their food sources. Maybe if they're trying to raise young, they're going to go reproduce. And when they're raising their babies, that's for a short period of time. I've only got this sparrow. We've been raising her for almost 2 weeks when she fell out of her nest in the neighbor's yard. And in another 2 weeks, this little bird is going to be gone and she'll be, wild out there doing what she needs. But for that 1 month, she needs some high energy food. And so maybe the place that you're living doesn't provide that. So you'll migrate to someplace else that allows you to get that really high energy food in a short period of time for your offspring. So it's better for you to breed in that place, but it's not best year round to live there because maybe it's really harsh the other times of the year. So birds and other animals will migrate to find food, to find great places to reproduce that are safe for their young. So they will migrate, and one of the main triggers to set them off on migrations is the daylight cycle. How many hours are in the day? When it's summertime, in the solstice in the summertime, that's the longest we're going to have the daylight hours. And then it shrinks and it shrinks and it shrinks and it shrinks. And then we'll end up with the winter solstice where it's the shortest amount of daylight hours. That change, shrinking down to the daylight hours, lets the birds know that's one of their triggers. So that's going to send them off. Seasons are changing. It's time to go. And then where do they go? How do they know how to navigate? They know how to navigate because they can sense the magnetic fields in the earth. This video explains it a whole lot better than I can do. It's super cool. The ability that birds have to be able to sense these things and know where to go, because we don't have that ability, but they do. And so they will migrate in all sorts of different we've got different flyways here demonstrated in this picture in the PowerPoint. And we've got here on the eastern coast, and we've got some kind of down in the middle that'll go all the way down to through Central America and down to South America. And we got west coasters over here. The migrations depend on the species and where they need to go to meet their needs. Some of them don't have to go too far. I mean, some of them will just come up from like Nova Scotia and go down to the Carolinas, and maybe that's it for them. Or maybe some of them will come all the way down to the tip of South America. The Arctic tern is going to go from pole to pole. It's crazy. So it's going to breed up in the North Pole when it's hanging out up here in the North Pole. And then after it's done breeding, it's going to head to the South Pole. So literally 11,000 miles that they will travel on the Gulf Stream, on the currents, and they will head down to the South Pole. And then season change and they'll head back up. So they go from pole to pole. This is the Arctic tern. They get the gold star for traveling the most during migration. Reproduction, everybody does it. Asexual and sexual reproduction. As far as sexual reproduction in birds, because they can produce eggs without being fertilized. Most of the eggs that we eat in our refrigerator aren't fertilized eggs. But when they do need to fertilize eggs, we got to get both birds together. The male birds are not, for the most part, going to have a penis. It's not like mammals. So they will put their two cloacas together so he can pass his sperm to the female. And so the sperm will get passed to the female and it's going to fertilize the egg. And the egg will go through processes where now we're going to add on the yolk, and we're going to add on the albumin, and now we're going to put on our shell membrane, and the shell is now hardened up and it will leave the cloaca from the female bird. And now we've got this egg and It's a prepackaged, ready-made environment for that egg, that fertilized egg, that little zygote to develop inside, and then out eventually will pop the baby bird, like I've got over here. How does this environment work for the animal? Well, we've got the yolk inside, and that's going to give the nutrients to the baby bird so it can develop, and it will be able to metabolize things. Its waste will stay, as far as liquid waste, will stay inside the egg. The gaseous waste, like CO2 that we're creating when we undergo metabolism, that will get out and we will bring the oxygen in. So just like our placenta works for us, this video shows you how the eggshell works for the little birds inside the egg, and that the oxygen can get through these teeny tiny pores on the eggshell, and that the CO2 can escape from the teeny tiny pores on the eggshell so they can respirate through the egg, which is pretty cool. So this is a bird development. Do they buddy up and pair? For most of the other species, you're not going to see monogamy, but birds are kind of the exception when we talk about lovebirds and that they're going to pair up and they pair up for life. So they could be monogamous or they could be polygamous. They could use multiple partners or they could use the same partner. Monogamy is shades of gray in the bird kingdom. 90% of the birds are going to have some kind of monogamy. So maybe they will mate up and be true monogamous, and they are lovebirds for life, like swans or penguins. If anybody's watched the Disney special on penguins that's out on Netflix right now, no, Disney Plus. Disney Plus has the penguin special. You can watch about how these birds will mate for life, and they will go their separate ways during the off season, and then breeding season they'll come back. That's true monogamy. Other types of monogamy, they may be together just for that season, and they will raise their chicks together, and then they'll part their separate ways, and then next season it'll be somebody else. Even within the season, though, they are not always faithful to the partner that is helping them raise the babies. And by the way, raising the babies is a two-parent job. They are eating all the time. And so if one parent doesn't make it, it's likely that the babies aren't going to make it, because I don't think one parent can do the job and feed this baby all the time like they need, especially not multiple babies. They eat like crazy. So some of these guys, even if they are hanging out with a partner, that partner may have not fertilized every single egg in that clutch, because maybe the female went off and met up with another male and he fertilized a couple of the eggs in that nest. Maybe that male that's raising the babies had snuck off to another nest and fertilized those eggs. So they may be monogamous in the rearing of the children, the baby birds, but they may not have actually been monogamous in creating the offspring. But in general, just in general, birds are on the spectrum of monogamy. When they nest, there's all kinds of nests out there that birds create. Some of them are really unique, this like basket hanging nest. Some of them are very small that match the very small little birds that are going to nest in here, like these guys, little hummingbirds, teeny tiny little nests. We've got these robin eggs because they're bright blue, and it is the season for robin eggs. It's a little past robin season. It's about 2 weeks past their eggs. Nest parasites. Nest parasites are birds that don't stick around to do the rearing of their young. They are deadbeat parents. That's what they are. They're deadbeat parents. So the female will go and find a nest of another species, or maybe even the same species. If we're talking about wood ducks will lay their eggs in another nest that it's called dumping. So they'll find another female's nest and they'll dump their eggs in her nest, and then they'll come back and take care of some of their own eggs, and then maybe some of their own eggs were stuff that were eggs that were dumped from another neighbor someplace else. So they will go to other nest cavities, nest boxes, dump some eggs, but they will raise their parent. They will raise offspring, the female wood duck. Other nest parasites like the brown-headed cowbird or the kookaburra or the cuckoo, these are nest parasites. So these birds come along, they will lay their egg in another species nest that egg will hatch. Those offspring are going to give the boot or outcompete the the mother's eggs. So the original offspring that were in that nest, this bird is either going to shove the eggs out of the nest, or they're just going to steal all the food. But either way, the babies of the mom don't make it. And mom spends all her time, look at this poor little teeny tiny bird, trying to feed this big gigantic monster of a bird that is not hers, but she will feed it and rear it and take care of it like it is hers. These are nest parasites. They're deadbeat parents relying on other people to raise their kids. Okay, so birds of note. Starlings. Starlings are birds that are not native to the Americas. They were brought over. Why were they brought over, do you ask? They were brought over because, you can see in this video if you want to watch it, there's a society that loved Shakespeare so much back in the day that they wanted every bird that Shakespeare wrote about here stateside in America. So they brought them over from England and the old world, and they brought those birds over and they released them into the Americas. So starlings are one of those birds. The bird that I'm raising right now, a house sparrow, is another bird that was imported in. So these guys are not indigenous. They don't belong here, but they have definitely taken a hold of our location, and they have thrived. Birds that are not thriving anymore. This guy, the dodo bird. The dodo bird was, you can see, he's got very small wings and very large legs. So he was landbound, and some of the first colonizers discovered them, noticed how tasty good they were, and ate them all. And so we were responsible for killing off the dodo population. Another thing that we did as humans where we killed off these birds. They're called passenger pigeons. And so they're kind of similar to our pigeons that we see now, the ring-necked doves, our common pigeons. These passenger pigeons were so numerous, like 200 years ago, that they were told, the stories say that they blotted out the sky. There were so many of them that it looked like a storm was coming and they blocked out the sunshine. There were millions of them in a flock, and they were all over pretty much the eastern seaboard up through the Midwest in the United States. So there were a lot of these passenger pigeons, and we would hunt them because they were delicious. But then as America evolved and we got better transportation and the train system, we're going into all sorts of different places. We didn't just hunt them for ourselves. We started hunting these birds commercially. So we would take out as many as we could, and we didn't pay any attention to the fact that we were taking out as many as we could because we thought that they will always come back. I mean, look at the sky. There's millions of them in the sky. There were supposed to be so many birds in the trees that they would break branches. There were so many birds. They broke the branches. So if there's that many birds, who cares if you take a couple? Well, eventually it adds up, and we ended up making this passenger pigeons go extinct by the early 1900s. The last passenger pigeon that was surviving in a zoo passed away in 1914. So we no longer have these. The only good thing that came out of us killing off this species was the fact that now we have laws in place, that there are hunting limits and restrictions on what you can take and how many you can take and when you can take them. Those laws were sparked by the fact that there was no regulations back in the day with the passenger pigeon. You could take whatever you wanted, however many you want, and give them to whoever you want. And now we have rules because of the passenger pigeon. And side note, if anybody watches Outlander, the series, they try and keep it true to the time period. And at the end of one of the episodes, I can't remember which one it was, but it was this series, this season. At the end, they had a flock of passenger pigeons go out of the scene. I was like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. So, nerd alert, they have passenger pigeons in the Outlander episode. Another bird of note, the largest bird in the world is the ostrich, and he has feathers and he has wings, but he is not going to fly. You're not going to get that big thing up. So these guys are very big. Ostriches and emus are very, very large birds, but they are not going to be flying around. If anybody has seen these guys, they are big and they know they're big and they'll throw their weight around and they will possibly be aggressive to you. Other birds that are notable, crows and ravens. I want to say we mentioned this back when we talked about animal behavior, but these guys are wicked smart. They can solve problems. They will find things that they like and collect them. And if they can't get a hold of them, they will figure out a way to try and collect the thing that they want and get what they want. They can time your car's vehicle traveling when you have those questions about physics back in the day that the car is traveling at X miles per hour and it is so far away. How far until it smushes the crow that's eating the carrion in the road? These guys are calculating it. They're doing their math in their head and they're processing how fast the car's coming and they will get out right on time. They are smart. They are problem solvers. They can use tools. So check out the videos on the crows and how smart they are. They're just cool. Other birds, white pelicans, we said ostriches were some of the biggest birds. White pelicans are some of the biggest migrating birds. I think they're like the second heaviest. They're really large, like geese size birds, and they are going to have this gigantic beak here where they're going to scoop up um, their prey and eat all the fish. White pelicans. The lyrebird is one of my favorite videos in this whole semester, I think. And I had saved it to the end of the semester because I love it so much and I wanted y'all to watch it here in the bird chapter. So please enlarge this. The lyrebird has the coolest calls. He can mimic all sorts of sounds. So please watch the video, see all the sounds that he's going to mimic, sounds that you would not think that a bird could make is coming out of this bird's mouth. So super cool video. It's a little dated. I want to say it's from like early 80s, but it's still amazing video footage of this bird making crazy sounds. It's just crazy. Lyrebird, check it out. Other birds that can make crazy sounds that sound like us are parrots, of course. Some of y'all may have a parrot or a parakeet at home, and they can mimic their owner's sounds. So I've got one of them talking and singing in these different videos. These African greys are also really smart. They can solve problems. So African gray is another pretty cool, smart, beautiful bird. And because of the pet trade, I want to say their numbers are declining too, along with all of the other parrots. So that is going to finish up the bird chapter. Let me know if you've got questions, and I will be available for office hours or always over email 24/7.